The sharp voice sliced through the afternoon stillness like a blade. "Get out of here and wait outside. You have absolutely no business being in this area." The attendant tone dripped with cold contempt. "I'm calling security right now if you don't leave. Someone like you doesn't belong on flights like this." She stood frozen, a successful entrepreneur in an elegant designer coat, holding a platinum card that most people only dream of possessing. The silence that followed seemed to swallow every sound in the terminal. Rain began drumming against the runway windows at Westchester County Airport, creating a dramatic backdrop to the unfolding scene. In that moment, a self-made aviation mogul found herself face to face with an employee who had absolutely no idea she was confronting the owner of the entire company. This wasn't just any passenger. She was the architect of the very airline this attendant worked for, the visionary who built it from the ground up. The attendant, blinded by her own judgment, had just made the most catastrophic mistake of her career. She saw a woman she deemed unworthy, never imagining she was speaking to the person who signed her paychecks, the one who held the fate of the entire airline in her hands. What happens when an employee's shocking rudeness is directed at the secret boss? This is a story you won't want to miss. It's a powerful reminder that you never truly know who you're talking to, and that respect is a currency that should be given to everyone, regardless of appearance. The confrontation was just the beginning. The fallout from this single misguided interaction would send ripples through the entire company. The attendant's world was about to be turned upside down. How did the owner react? Did she reveal her identity right then and there, or did she have something else planned? The consequences of this encounter were swift, unexpected, and would serve as a lesson for everyone involved. Stay tuned as we dive into the full story of what happened next. You'll be shocked by the outcome and the powerful lesson it teaches about humility and the hidden power that people can hold. Trust me, the ending is something you have to see to believe. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more incredible stories like this one. That afternoon, heavy clouds gathered over Westchester, casting a somber gray light across the city. A gleaming black Mercedes, polished to a mirror finish, glided silently to a stop at the terminal entrance. The door opened, and a woman emerged. Her designer heels clicked with sharp confidence against the damp pavement, a stark contrast to the dreary weather. She had just returned from London, having successfully closed a billion-dollar deal, and all she wanted was a quiet moment before her flight home. She made her way towards the first-class lounge, a sanctuary she had earned. But peace was not to be found so easily. The moment she reached the entrance, she was met with a barrier in the form of Jason Miller, the lounge manager. He blocked her path, his body language radiating skepticism. "This lounge," he announced, his voice dripping with condescension, "is exclusively for first-class passengers." His gaze swept over her, a silent judgment in his eyes. "I'll need to see your boarding pass and your membership credentials." She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, unfazed by his challenging tone and suspicious demeanor. Why was he so determined to question her presence? Without a word of argument, she reached into her clutch and retrieved her platinum card and boarding pass. She held them out to him. Jason snatched them, examining them under the harsh overhead light as if he were inspecting counterfeit currency. He was looking for a flaw, a reason to deny her entry. After a long, theatrical pause, he sighed loudly, a performance for the benefit of any nearby passengers. "Well, these certainly look unusual," he declared, his voice carrying through the quiet terminal. "I must say, I've never encountered cards quite like this before." He looked her up and down again. "Are you absolutely certain you belong in here?" The implication was clear. She didn't fit his idea of a first-class traveler. Her voice, however, remained as steady and cool as steel. "I can assure you," she said, meeting his gaze without flinching, "everything is perfectly legitimate." But, little did he know, he wasn't just questioning a passenger. He was challenging the very person who held his fate in her hands. What happens next will shock you. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this story. "Fine, but you'll wait outside while I verify this," he said coldly, pointing toward the rain-streaked glass doors. "We must protect our premium clientele's privacy and comfort." The insult behind his polite words was unmistakable, but she stepped outside without protest. The man, Jason, immediately turned to greet an elderly gentleman who had just arrived, his entire manner transforming into one of fawning respect. "Good afternoon, Mr. Patterson. Your flight boards shortly, please. Come right in." The man entered without showing a single document, not even a glance back. Outside, she watched through the glass as the cold rain began to soak through her expensive coat. One after another, impeccably dressed travelers strolled past her, unchallenged, while she waited in the downpour, treated like an intruder at her own facility. Each person who passed her without a second glance felt like a small, sharp sting. She was invisible, or worse, she was seen as someone who didn't belong. The minutes ticked by, stretching into an eternity of cold and humiliation. 10 minutes, 15, 20, 25 minutes passed before Jason finally reappeared. "All right," he announced reluctantly, suspicion still clouding his expression. "I'll let you in because of the weather, but we'll be monitoring you closely." Those words cut deeper than the cold rain. Here she was, a powerful executive at the helm of an aviation empire, being humiliated in her own company by her own employee, simply because her appearance didn't match their narrow expectations of what power and success looked like. She walked past him, her silence more potent than any words she could have spoken. As she entered the warm, luxurious lounge, every head turned. A hush fell over the room as the staff recognized her. The sudden shift in atmosphere was dramatic. The fawning, the apologies, the frantic attempts to please began instantly. But for her it was too late. The damage was done. This wasn't just about one employee's mistake. It was a symptom of a much deeper problem within her company's culture. She knew then that this experience, as painful as it was, had given her a new, urgent mission. It was time for a change, and it would start from the top down. This wasn't just about an airport lounge anymore. It was about respect, dignity, and the very soul of the empire she had built. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one she was about to unleash. She walked into the lounge, completely soaked from the rain, but her face was a mask of pure composure. Today was the day. She would let them all show their true colors, and then she would personally tear down the toxic culture that had been poisoning her organization from the inside out. As she stepped over the threshold, the warm light from the crystal chandeliers hit her face, a bitter contrast to the icy rain she had just escaped. Across the room, an attendant named Jason watched her every move with suspicious eyes, as if she was some kind of threat. He leaned over to another attendant and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear, "Keep a close watch on that woman. Let me know immediately if you see anything suspicious." Unfazed, she sank into a plush leather chair in the corner, her gaze calm and observant. Nobody in this room had a clue. They didn't know she owned this entire aviation empire. They didn't know she was the one whose signature was on every single one of their paychecks. Jason kept shooting glances her way, his brow furrowed with suspicion. He turned to his computer, pulling up her details. The screen clearly displayed the name, O. Bennett, and right next to it, the title owner CEO. But Jason either didn't see it or simply couldn't believe he could be so wrong. He was so caught up in his own assumptions. From the other side of the lounge, a young attendant named Mia Collins watched the scene unfold. A knot of confusion and guilt tightening in his stomach. She had seen it all. She saw how the woman was forced to wait outside in the pouring rain while other guests were ushered in without a second glance. A seed of doubt began to sprout in Mia's mind, a feeling that something was terribly wrong here. But fear held her back, and she stayed silent, just watching. Little did she know, her silence was being noted just as much as Jason's blatant disrespect. The stage was set, and the final act was about to begin. What happens next will shock you. Make sure to follow for part 2. Suddenly, Jason approached her chair. He bent slightly, his tone lowered but laden with authority. "I want to make this perfectly clear. We'll be watching you closely. Any suspicious behavior, and I will call security immediately." "Do you do this to all guests?" she asked evenly, her voice calm yet carrying an unspoken weight. "Or only to those who look like me?" Jason froze for a moment, perhaps taken aback by her composed directness. Then, recovering his usual arrogance, he replied coldly, "I do it for anyone I feel needs monitoring." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her question hanging unanswered in the air. Outside, the rain continued to lash against the grand windows. She sat quietly for a moment, taking it all in. This was just the beginning. She understood that the real storm was still to come. After several tense minutes passed, she finally rose from her seat and slipped back into her damp raincoat. Her heels clicked softly on the gleaming marble floor as she walked through the wide glass doors, heading toward the tarmac. The wind whipped her hair as she stepped outside. Not far off, her private jet, a gleaming Gulfstream worth millions, waited patiently on the wet pavement. But as she approached the boarding stairs, a flight attendant in a crisp, perfect uniform stepped forward, almost as if she was waiting to bar her way. This was Emma Roberts, the head attendant, renowned for her keen eye in sizing up passengers. Her professional pride was about to lead her to the single worst mistake of her entire life. She looked the woman up and down, a dismissive look crossing her face. "Excuse me, Miss Emma," said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'm afraid this is a private flight. The commercial terminal is on the other side of the airport." The woman simply looked at her, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. She didn't say a word, just reached into her pocket. What she pulled out next would make Emma's blood run cold and change the course of her day and her career forever. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief as she saw it. What could it be? A badge? An ID? The woman held it up for her to see clearly, and in that instant Emma knew she had messed with the wrong person. The power dynamic shifted completely. The attendant, who thought she was in control, was now face to face with a reality she never could have imagined. And our story is just getting started. What happens next will shock you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next part of this incredible story. Thanks for watching. Emma scanned the woman standing before her, her eyes traveling from head to toe in a slow, judgmental sweep. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice sharp and unwelcoming, but this is a private jet. You're not allowed aboard. The words hit the woman like a splash of ice water, a sudden shock on the sun-drenched tarmac. Yet, her expression remained unshaken, her composure a mask of serene confidence. She replied calmly, her voice even and steady, I know exactly where I am. I'm a passenger on this flight, and I have all the proper paperwork to prove it. Emma offered a mocking half-smile, her tone dripping with challenge. Honestly, she said, her voice dropping to a cold, dismissive whisper, you don't look like the kind of passenger we normally serve. She gestured vaguely in the distance. Are you sure you're not supposed to be over at the commercial terminal? It's about a mile that way. The barbed words were designed to cut deep, to wound her pride. But the passenger remained astonishingly calm, a pillar of grace against the rising tide of contempt. She simply extended her boarding pass once more. I suggest you verify my information thoroughly, she advised, before making any more judgments. But Emma didn't even glance at the paper being offered. Instead, she sneered, her condescension growing with every passing second. She raised her voice, making sure it was loud enough to carry across the tarmac, to draw an audience. Do you have any idea how much it costs to fly on this jet? She boomed. A single trip like this doesn't go for less than $75,000. I just don't think that's a price most people, especially someone who looks like you, can afford. Her cruel words hung in the air, drawing the attention of the nearby ground staff. A few of them exchanged uneasy glances before quickly looking away, unwilling to get caught in the crossfire. But the confrontation was far from over. The woman simply smiled, a knowing glint in her eye, as if she held a secret Emma couldn't even begin to imagine. What happens next will leave you speechless. Make sure to follow for part 2. Emma, emboldened by the silence around her, raised her voice. Security. We have an unauthorized person attempting to board a private aircraft. We need support right away. At Emma's call, Jason Miller rushed over, ready to back his colleague. He looked at the woman with triumphant authority. You need to leave immediately. This area is restricted to eligible passengers. I am an eligible passenger, she replied evenly, her gaze unwavering. Please check the passenger manifest. But Emma had reached her limit. Her wounded pride refused to concede, and she held up a hand to silence the woman with icy finality. I don't need to check anything else. I've seen all kinds of people try to sneak onto this jet, and believe me, I know who our real customers are. Unfortunately, you're not one of them. The woman simply smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips that made Emma's blood boil. Is that so? Then you won't mind if I make a quick phone call. Before Emma could object, the woman pulled out a sleek, modern phone and dialed a number. The call connected almost instantly. Hi, Dad, she said, her voice light and casual. Yeah, I'm at the airstrip. There's a bit of a misunderstanding. 2 of your staff, an Emma and a Jason, seem to think I'm a stowaway. There was a pause. Emma and Jason exchanged a nervous glance. The confidence they felt just moments ago was rapidly evaporating, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. The woman continued. Oh, you're on the line with Mr. Harrison now. Perfect. Could you put him on speaker for me? A new, powerful voice boomed from the phone. A voice both Emma and Jason recognized with a jolt of pure terror. It was John Harrison, the CEO of their company, the very man who owned this private jet. Mr. Harrison's voice was dangerously calm. Would one of you care to explain why you are preventing my daughter from boarding my plane? The same daughter, I might add, who is now the majority shareholder of this entire airline after her birthday last week. I'll be waiting for your explanation in my office. Don't be late. The line went dead. The silence that followed was heavier than any physical weight. The woman, Mr. Harrison's daughter, slipped her phone back into her pocket. She looked at the 2 stunned employees, her smile gone, replaced by a look of cool disappointment. I believe you have a manifest to check, she said softly, before stepping past them and onto the jet, leaving them to face the consequences of their spectacular misjudgment. What do you think happens next? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Jason sneered, surveying her from head to toe with pure mockery. He then turned to Emma. Emma, what do you think about this one? Emma just shrugged, her expression dripping with contempt. Look, Jason, if she were actually a VIP, wouldn't one of us have recognized her by now? It's pretty obvious she's just trying to sneak her way onto a luxury jet. Their words were like sharp daggers, piercing her pride, but she refused to let them see her falter. She remained composed, her posture unyielding. For the second time, she reached into her bag and retrieved her documents. With unwavering resolve, she held them out. Here are my boarding pass and my ID. I really don't want to have to repeat myself again. Jason snatched them from her hand, his annoyance clear. He gave them a quick, dismissive glance before a loud, derisive laugh erupted from him. Emma, you have got to see this. We've got a legitimate-looking boarding pass and even a premium corporate card. How impressive. He was practically dripping with sarcasm. But let's be real. Anyone can get their hands on phony documents these days. Emma shot her a look of pure, unadulterated disdain. A premium card, oh please? You can fake that stuff, so I believe. Do you actually think that's going to intimidate us? The air crackled with tension, her document still held in Jason's hand. She met their scornful gazes with a calm, steady stare, her silence more powerful than any word she could have said. It was clear this was far from over. What could she possibly do to prove them wrong? The real question is, what happens when they finally realize who they're messing with? This is just the beginning. Make sure to follow for the next part. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. Jason and Emma's forced laughter echoed around them, and the other staff joined in with awkward chuckles, but not a single person dared to defend me. Outside, the rain began to pour down, beating against the terminal windows. I stood my ground, silent. Not out of weakness, but because I was waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect opportunity to deliver a decisive response. Emma, her patience clearly wearing thin, leaned in close to Jason. If security doesn't show up soon, she hissed, we'll just have to handle this ourselves. Jason nodded, a threatening glint in his eyes. You'd best leave now, he said, his voice low. Don't make us take stronger measures. I remained completely still, my gaze shifting between them, sharp and piercing. When I finally spoke, my voice was soft, yet it carried an undeniable weight, a formidable authority that cut through the tension. Are you absolutely certain you want to see this through? Because once I finish this call, there's no turning back. Emma burst into a fit of mocking laughter. Oh, how scary, Jason. Did you hear that? Chase threatening us. Jason smirked, joining in with a smug tone. Yeah, you'd better make that call quick. We can't wait to see what else you have planned. Unfazed by their taunts, I raised my phone to my ear. I spoke each word with crystal clear precision and command. Lauren, connect me to Ethan and the executive team immediately. We have a serious situation at Westchester Airport that needs urgent attention. The air went still. My icy, commanding tone made Emma and Jason freeze for a split second. A sudden premonition of deep trouble flashed in their eyes, their smug smiles vanishing as the reality of their mistake began to sink in. They had underestimated me, and now they were about to face the consequences. Stay tuned for what happens next, and don't forget to subscribe. Seconds later, Ethan Bennett's clear voice crackled through the line. This is Ethan. Are you all right? What's this emergency about? She looked Emma and Jason dead in the eye, her voice ringing out. Precise, unwavering, absolute. I'm being blocked from boarding my own private jet by our own employees at Westchester. They're telling me I'm unqualified to fly on my own plane. Call an immediate board meeting to address this. I am Olivia Benner, CEO of Bennett Aviation, and this is completely unacceptable. Each word landed like a hammer blow on Emma and Jason's nerves. Emma felt a jolt run down her spine and glanced to Jason for backup, only to see his confident facade beginning to crumble. Still, Emma's pride overpowered her fear. She forced a laugh, speaking loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Jason, did you hear that? Now she's claiming to be the CEO? Hilarious. Jason, though secretly rattled, doubled down alongside her. Exactly. Emma. She's so desperate she's impersonating our leadership. Pathetic. Despite their attempts at composure, Jason's voice wavered. He scanned the bystanders for support, but no one dared meet Olivia's gaze. Olivia remained silent, letting Ethan speak. Understood, Olivia. I'll handle this right away. I'll be there as soon as I can. She ended the call and slid her phone into her pocket. Turning back to Emma and Jason with a steely glare, she spoke softly but with unmistakable menace. You both have about 10 minutes before this becomes a permanent problem, your choice. Her voice, though quiet, cut through the air and sent a fresh wave of panic through Emma and Jason. They exchanged a look, the mockery gone, replaced by pure terror. They had made a terrible, terrible mistake. Before either of them could utter an apology, a sleek black car sped onto the tarmac, braking sharply a few feet away. The back door swung open, and out stepped Ethan Bennett, his expression grim. He strode towards them, his eyes locked on Emma and Jason. What is the meaning of this? You're preventing the CEO from accessing company property, he demanded, his voice echoing across the New Zealand airfield. Jason stammered, Mr. Bennett, we didn't know. We thought she was, Ethan cut him off. You thought wrong. Security, escort these two off the premises immediately. Their employment is terminated. Olivia, your plane is ready. Olivia gave a slight nod to Ethan, then cast one last cold glance at the stunned pair being led away. She walked past them without a word and boarded her jet. The door closed, and the engines roared to life, leaving her two former employees to face the consequences of their arrogance. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Emma Roberts, Jason Miller, I suggest you both consider very carefully the words you just spoke, because every insult you directed at me today will be used as evidence against you. Emma tried to suppress a wave of rising panic, but her eyes couldn't hide the turmoil inside. You're trying to threaten us. Let me tell you something. Whoever you are, that doesn't change a thing. We were only doing our job. Olivia studied them both, one last time, her expression a mix of disappointment and cold resolve. I gave you one final chance to recognize your mistake. Clearly you don't grasp the severity of what you've done. From now on, you will be fully accountable for every action you take." As Olivia stood there, calm yet commanding, the entire airport seemed to fall into a heavy, suffocating silence. Outside, the rain pounded even harder against the concrete, as if mirroring the building tension. Just then, from the door of a nearby private jet, two figures emerged. Captain Richard Davis and First Officer Tyler Evans stepped out onto the tarmac, their faces etched with skepticism and deep concern. Captain Davis's gaze fell on Olivia, and he was immediately struck by her natural authority, her composed confidence. A knot of unease tightened in his gut. This was not the person he had been told to expect. Meanwhile, Lucas Parker, the ground supervisor who had been watching quietly from a distance, finally decided to step forward. His face was a mixture of hesitation and a growing sense of resolve. "Emma, Jason," he began, his voice low but firm, "I really think we ought to recheck her paperwork. We could be making a serious mistake here." Emma whirled on Lucas, her eyes flashing with anger. "Lucas, I don't need you telling me how to do my job. I know exactly who I'm dealing with." Beside her, Jason crossed his arms, a smug smirk spreading across his face as he watched the scene unfold. He was confident they had the situation under control. But as Captain Davis and his first officer approached, the reality of the situation was about to crash down on them. What happens next will change everything. Make sure to subscribe to find out. "You heard her, Lucas. This isn't your responsibility. Don't go stirring up trouble for yourself." Lucas's pride was stung, but he knew he didn't have the authority to challenge his superiors. He just lowered his head and reluctantly backed away. Captain Davis then stepped toward Emma, trying his best to sound professional. "Emma, at least let's double-check the passenger manifest one more time. The fallout from this could be far worse than we think." But Emma just glared at him, her gaze colder than ever. "I told you already. If you don't have anything else to do, get back to the cockpit. I will take full responsibility for this." Davis stood there, completely stunned. Fear for his job and his own safety froze him right where he stood. Meanwhile, Olivia slowly retrieved her phone once again. She turned away from the group and made another call, her voice sharp and unwavering. "Ryan Hughes, I need you to immediately secure and pull every security camera recording from Westchester over the past hour. We have a serious discrimination incident that requires investigation right away." On the other end of the line, Ryan Hughes, the head of security, immediately recognized the gravity in her tone. He replied crisply, "Understood, Ms. Bennett. I'll dispatch our security team immediately." Olivia's decisive action sent a jolt of pressure through Emma and Jason. They couldn't help but scan the area around them, their minds racing, wondering just how much damning footage those cameras might have captured. The air was thick with tension, and it was in that charged atmosphere that a small figure stepped forward. It was Mia Collins, the young ramp attendant who had witnessed the entire thing from the start. She cautiously approached Olivia. You could see the war between guilt and bravery playing out on her face as she began to speak, her voice trembling just slightly. What will she reveal? Stay tuned for the next part to find out. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Ms. Bennett, I want to sincerely apologize for everything you've been through. This was a grievous mistake, and I'm truly ashamed that I stood by and couldn't speak up to protect you. Olivia's eyes softened at Mia's words. She inclined her head gently, a gesture of acceptance. Thank you. Your courage means a great deal to me. At that moment, Emma's face twists with anger. She strides over, her movements sharp and aggressive, cutting Mia off before she can say another word. Mia, you have no authority here. Go back to your post immediately. But before Emma can act, before she can physically assert her dominance, Olivia steps in. She places a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder, a silent promise of protection, and fixes Emma with a gaze of absolute authority. Emma, it's you who should worry about the serious measures I'm about to take. Olivia's calm but commanding words freeze Emma in her tracks. The air crackles with tension. Jason, who had been watching from the sidelines, involuntarily steps back. His trembling hand, which he quickly tries to hide, betrays the truth. The situation has entirely slipped from their control. They had underestimated Olivier, and now they were about to face the consequences. This was no longer just an office dispute. It was a reckoning. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and everyone in the room could feel it. Olivia was now in charge, and her next move would be decisive. What will she do? How will she hold them accountable? The suspense is unbearable. Make sure you're following so you don't miss the next part of this incredible story. We're just getting to the best part, and trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Captain Davis quietly pulled a tablet from his jacket. He tapped the screen, his hand trembling slightly as he revisited the flight manifest one last time. When the list appeared, his eyes immediately locked onto the very first entry. Oh, Bennett, owner, CEO. For a moment, all the chaotic sounds of the airport faded into a dull roar for Davis. He slowly looked up at Olivia, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. There was no going back now. My God, he whispered, the words barely audible. First Officer Evans, noticing the captain's shock, glanced at the tablet. His face went completely pale. She really is the owner of Bennett Aviation, he stammered. Whisper, like a shockwave, spread to the nearby ground crew. One by one, they froze in place, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and deep remorse. But Emma, still fuming, wasn't paying attention. I don't know what she thinks she's doing, she snapped, her voice dripping with venom, but this whole circus ends right now. Emma, Captain Davis interrupted, his tone sharp and urgent. You need to see this. Immediately. Emma frowned, irritated by the interruption, and turned to face Davis. Her eyes fell on the tablet screen, and she froze solid. Oh, Bennett CEO. The smug, condescending expression on her face vanished, instantly replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. Oh, Bennett, CEO, double quotes, she mumbled, the realization dawning on her. Nearby, Jason Miller went dash. All his earlier bravado and confidence crumbled into utter terror. Olivia just stood there before them, her silence more powerful than any words could be. The truth spoke for itself. Suddenly the suffocating tension in the lobby was shattered by the piercing wail of sirens erupting outside, through the sheets of rain lashing against the windows. A convoy of glossy black SUVs screeched to a halt at the entrance. The door of the lead vehicle swung open, and a man stepped out into the storm. It was Ethan Bennett, flanked by the company's top attorneys, HR executives, and a formidable security team. Ethan's expression was pure ice, his gaze blade sharp with a fury that promised a reckoning was about to begin. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just arrived. Stay tuned to see what happens next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The moment he stepped into the VIP area, every employee went silent. A hush fell over the cabin as his gaze swept across the room, finally locking onto Olivia. Seeing his sister, the woman who had poured her heart and soul into building Bennett Aviation from the ground up, being treated like a criminal on her very own flight, ignited a blaze of anger within him. Olivia, are you okay? Ethan strode quickly to her side. His voice was gentle, but laced with a steely concern that everyone could feel. Olivia managed a small, tired nod. I'm okay, Ethan, but I don't think our company is. The words were quiet, but they landed with the force of a thunderclap. Ethan understood immediately. He swept a cold, piercing glance over the terrified faces of the staff. Emma, who had been so bold just moments before, now dared not raise her head. Jason looked pale and sickly, his previous arrogance completely drained away as if it had never existed. What on earth happened here? Ethan's voice was low, but it was a commanding tone that cut through the silence like a razor. Why was my sister, the CEO of Bennett Aviation, treated like a common criminal on her own plane? Emma's throat felt tight, as if a hand were wrapped around it. Yet, a flicker of her stubborn streak remained. She managed to stammer out a response. Mr. Bennett, we were just doing our duty. To protect whom? Ethan's interruption was sharp as a knife, slicing through her excuse. Protect genuine passengers, or protect your own blind prejudice and discrimination. Emma's face strained of all color, her expression frozen in pure fear. Jason instinctively took a step back, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. Ethan gave a subtle signal to his security detail, who immediately began securing the area and preserving all surveillance footage. I want a full briefing on every single detail of this incident, Ethan declared, his voice leaving no room for argument. Every one of you will explain to me exactly why you treated Olivia this way. As his words hung in the air, Captain Davis approached, offering a respectful yet deeply ashamed bow. The real investigation was about to begin. What happens next will shock you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Olivia's sharp words cut through the air, and Emma, the flight attendant, froze, her face turning beet red with shame. Olivia then turned to the captain. Captain Davis, I know you said you made a mistake, but you were in charge. Your silence let this happen. I'll have to suspend you until we can investigate this fully. The captain just nodded, unable to speak, accepting his fate. Finally, Olivia looked back at Emma and Jason. Emma Roberts, Jason Miller, as of right now, you are both fired from Bennett Aviation. My company will never tolerate discrimination of any kind. You have 30 minutes to get your things. Security will watch you. Then Olivia's voice boomed through the cabin, full of authority. Everyone, listen up. Remember today.
Have you ever seen someone's hard work completely ignored? I had this brilliant junior colleague, Sarah. She was sharp, innovative, and always went the extra mile. But in every team meeting, it was like she was invisible. Our manager, Mr. Harrison, would just gloss over her contributions, sometimes even giving credit to someone else. It was frustrating to watch. I couldn't just stand by and let her talent be wasted. So, I started mentoring her. We worked together after hours, making sure her points were undeniable and her delivery was confident. And you know what? It worked. Sarah started to shine. Her presentations were incredible, backed by solid proof of her impact. He'd interrupt her, dismiss her data, or change the subject. It was no longer just about Sarah's career. I knew I had a choice, too. I could stay quiet and keep my head down, or I could speak up. It was scary, but seeing Sarah's determination gave me the courage. I realized that standing up for what's right isn't just for her, it's for everyone. It's about creating a workplace where every voice is heard and every contribution is valued. That's the kind of place I want to work, and I was ready to fight for it. What would you have done? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
This case became a celebrated study at Harvard Business School. Universities and corporations all over started using Olivia's story as a key lesson in building a healthy and positive workplace. Just 1 month after it all happened, Olivia was invited to a congressional hearing on corporate social responsibility. Standing before the committee, she said, "No company can truly be proud of its profits if those profits were built on injustice and prejudice. Social responsibility isn't a choice. It's an absolute obligation for anyone in a position of power." Her speech was met with thunderous applause, and her message spread like wildfire. Then, 6 months later, something unexpected happened. Emma Roberts, the person at the center of the original conflict, publicly issued a letter of apology. She took full responsibility for everything she had done. "I've spent months reflecting on my mistakes," Emma wrote. "I sincerely apologize to Ms. Bennett and to everyone who was harmed by my actions." As Olivia read those words, she felt a sense of genuine remorse coming through. She realized that truly changing a company's culture means giving people who have made sincere mistakes a chance to make things right. So, Olivia did something remarkable. She invited Emma to join Bennett Aviation's new anti-bias training program. The idea was for Emma to share her own painful experience, helping her colleagues understand the real, human cost of prejudice. Over time, Emma became a powerful example of what it means to bravely face your own errors. She proved to everyone that it's never too late to make a positive change. Finally, once the storm had passed and things settled down, Olivia returned home. It was her father, William Bennett's 70th birthday. Surrounded by the warmth of family, William stood up to give a toast. His eyes were shining with pride as he looked at his daughter, the woman who had not just saved a company, but had started a movement. This story shows us that one person's courage can truly change the world, one workplace at a time. Thanks for watching, and if you were inspired by Olivia's journey, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories that matter. See you next time.